Good morning, all, and Jai Sadgurudeo. Welcome to yet another awaited session of our weekly Sunday Satsang. I'm Rajkumar and have joined this virtual Satsang from Edison, New Jersey, and I'll be hosting today's session. In the current times, our day-to-day life is very busy in fulfilling our physical, mental, and social requirements and responsibilities. In this fast-paced routine life, the requirements of the soul are often forgotten. So, first of all, I congratulate each one of you on board for taking some time from your busy schedule and attending this virtual satsang to fulfill the requirements of soul by means of the science of consciousness. So let us begin our session. But before that, I would like to announce one thing, that if you are also looking for a daily meditation and breathing session, that happens every day, 7 a.m. in the morning and 7 p.m. in the evening. Now, we will begin our session with the Swarved Gyan. But today, I am very glad that I got the opportunity to host this session, where we are going to start this Swarved Gyan from the Swarved Glimpses, the book which is recently published, inaugurated in the 100th annual anniversary of Vihangam Yoga Sansthan in India, Varanasi, at the Swarved Mahamandir Dham premise. Those who and this was one of the which was we were waiting for this English conversion of Swarved, though it is not like the full Swarved, like all the 3,000 plus dohas, but it has a very good selected Swarved dohas that has been converted into English language, and it is very those dohas are very, very beautiful, and have we can get a lot of like a kind of a glimpse of what this particular knowledge is. So I request, if you prefer English reading, then you order a copy for you. This is also it's available with us. And the good thing about this book is, like, it's also very lightweight, because it contains a few very important selected dohas, and can be carried anywhere. You can travel, you can carry this, you can read this. So it's a very good small book of Swarved. For today's session, I would like to invite Dr. Subhash ji from New York to present us some verses from this particular book. Dr. Subhash ji, who's unit chief of adult psychiatry unit with Northwell Health and runs his own private clinic, is an assistant professor of psychiatry at Zucker School of Medicine, Hofstra, Northwell. He's worked as a forensic psychiatry at Brooklyn Supreme Court and King's County Hospital. He completed his forensic psychiatry fellowship from University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. He's completed psychiatry residency from SUNY Downstate Medical Center, New York. He's a senior resident, All India Institute of Medical Science in Forensic Medicine, and served as the chair of Council of International Medical Doctors at American Medical Association. And most importantly, he's also a practitioner of Vihangam Yoga from his childhood, with a deep understanding and experience of this science of consciousness and the Sadguru Tattva. So I would like to request him on behalf of all the attendees to please share the Swarved Gyan from this glimpse of Swarved book. Without any delay, I request Subhasji. Over to you, Dr. Subhasji.
Jai Sadgurudeo to all. And thank you, Rajji. And thank you for introducing or giving my professional details. And why I'm pointing it out, because it caught my attention where Swamiji had said कि जहां जाना है वहां की तैयारी से कोई मतलब नहीं है, और जिस जगह को छोड़ना है उसी की तैयारी में हम लगे हैं. So you see that introduction was an example of how I have been spending my time on this earth for decades, despite knowing the fact that I have to leave this earth. But if I ask Rajji to introduce me from a spiritual standpoint, what are my spiritual achievements, he won't have anything to say about me, because there are no advancements spiritually to be quoted. So it's very important to keep in mind that as Swamiji has repeatedly said, that all our efforts and tendencies are lost in doing things for the place, for the purpose, where we know that our existence will soon be unknown. No one will know who we are, what we are, once we leave this earth. And the preparation for the place where we belong to, we still are not fully devoted. And this was, I wanted to bring this up. It got me reminded of what Swamiji has been reiterating. But for the material world, again, thank you, Rajji. So just my prayers in the holy feet of Sadgurudeo. एक शब्द गुरुदेव का, ताको अनंत विचार, ताके मुनि जन पंडिता, वेदन पावे पार. वेद थके ब्रह्मा थके, थकया शेष महेश. गीता हूँ की गम नहीं, कहाँ सदगुरु उपदेश. तीन लोक नव खंड में, गुरु से बड़ा न को. करता करे ना करी सके, गुरु करे सो हो. खण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तमयेन चराचरं, तत्पदं दर्शितं येन, तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः. Once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my input on the glimpses of Swarveda. And thanks to all the esteemed audience who make this session happen. Without their presence, this session would never happen. So we are looking at the first mandal, first chapter, first mandal, first sloka. Now, from a inquisitive standpoint, what comes to me is that whenever you read a book, again, I'm not taking the spirituality out of it, but talking like a very bhautik day-to-day person. Whenever you read a book, you always need to know what this is about. That can only be known, and that can only enchant you to dig deeper if it mentions what it will lead to and where it will lead to, what it looks like. And if that is attractive to you, that will be the one reason why you would read a certain book. So in this first sloka itself, first couplet, I see the beautiful definition of Supreme Being, so that we get an idea that what we are longing for. We say that we are suffering in this Prakriti. So what it will be, our destination would look like, although it does not go in detail in this just one couplet of the experiences, but what that destination would look like. And why it talks about it? Because there are so many religions and literatures who keeps talking about God and Supreme Being, and still they find it very difficult to tell what is God, who is God. And as I've shared before, I asked once to present Swamiji, Sri Swatantradevji Maharaj, that have you seen God? So even as a child, that inquisitiveness, have you seen God? Now you see, this is ignorance. Ignorance from what? God is not someone who can be seen. So here comes this sloka to tell us that what it is and how it is beyond our Prakriti Manda. So the couplet reads, Satya Satya se alag hai, so par Satya Swarup, akatha alaukik tattva hai, aj anadi vararup. I remember initially when I used to read it, I would go to its direct English meaning, which was Satya means truth, or Satya means not truth or false. But every literature is written in its unique way. And I'm trying to break it down and make it more understandable based on what Jessica ji and Dev ji is also trying to understand it. So for me, when I read it the first time as a child, I just tried to do the English translation and could not understand. So it's very important to get an idea of the words that have been used and what it really relates to. So if I ask someone, what is that Supreme Being, what it is like? So in Swarveda, in this couplet, Swamiji says, Satya asatya se alag hai. It is something which is not inert. It is something which is beyond the entities which are eternal. Because to help someone understand something, they can only be taught or give an example from their day-to-day life for the sake of comparison. For example, if I'm in a village, I don't know what a car looks like. Maybe someone will use the example of ox cart, the four-wheeled cart, where two oxes in the front, they pull the cart. So that also has wheels, it moves. So someone can help me understand what a car would look like with that. But here Swamiji is saying that whatever you have seen so far, what you are aware of so far, everything Everything that is in this inert world, which is impermanent, your house, your table, chair, day-to-day things, electricity, everything that you see and you come across. And those eternal entities, the 6 eternal entities, we have heard, we have read and discussed about it. So that is also knowledge-based, not experience-based. So it is separate, it is totally different from the eternal entities and the day-to-day inert entities which surround us in every form from morning to night. It says, Sopar Satya Swarupa. Swarup. So it's very important to understand that one part is that it is not inert and it is different from all the eternal entities. And there is nothing with which it can be compared. So it makes it very difficult to explain it in terms of words, because we only understand things based on what we have experienced, what we are seeing, what our 5 sense organs tell us. But here, there is nothing to compare. So that supreme being towards whom our Sadgurudeo will take us, the ultimate guide and the only guide, Sadgurudeo in the Swarveda is talking about the supreme being, which is the goal of being human. And that supreme being is neither inert and different from other eternal entities. And there is nothing comparable to that supreme being, which can be given as an example to explain someone. He further explains it, because when we cannot explain certain things, we talk about its traits, that what are the qualities it has, and so that one can get an idea of what someone is referring to. It's akat. Kat means kahna, akat, that which cannot be explained in words, which cannot be, we are explaining it in words. It is something that we cannot be described. It can only be experienced. So it's akat, alaukik. Lok, this is the lok we are in. Alaukik, it is beyond this lok. It is something which is beyond this prakriti. And what it means by beyond this prakriti, when we talk about prakriti, we talk about the 3 attributes, Sat, Raj, Tam. So that supreme being is Trigunatit, does not have any of the attributes of prakriti. Aj, Anadi, Vararup. So Swamiji further explains that not only it is devoid of any prakritic element of nature, it is something which was always present. It was always present in its pure form, in all forms of existence. For example, if I ask where I live right now, the house, was it present forever? Was it always there? No. They said it was built in 1988. When did the human life begin? It goes down to, it varies with literatures, it goes down to 5,000, 6,000, even million, billion years. That is what is discussed. But here we are discussing that supreme being always existed. We cannot label a time when he was there or when he was not there. He existed in its purest form, in everything, in every form of existence, and he is the cause of every form of existence. And it is always in that pure form that it does not change. There is no transfer, there is no transformation. So someone may ask, what about these day-to-day things, table, chair? This is also made from Prakriti. So you are saying that everything that is existing, the Supreme Being, exists in that existence. Not only that, he regulates it. Not only that, he is witnessing the way this existence came into place. So there are so many traits we talk about, that the Supreme Being, the God, is almighty, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. And that is what Swamiji is conveying us in this first sloka. So how, for me, if someone asked me, can you show me where is God in this table or chair where you're sitting? It will be difficult for me to show where is God in that. So that is the knowledge that Swamiji has. And that is what he is imparting us through this sloka. Knowledge comes in multiple forms, something you observe, something you create, or something you learn. And when you practice it on your own, you realize and you experience it. That Supreme Being, being the executor, being the witnesser who is witnessing everything, who is the regulator, who is the cause, that is the Supreme Being. As we talk about Akshar Brahm, but this will be a discussion away from this first sloka. And we have discussed it even before, and some people have difficulty grasping the idea that that Almighty, that Supreme Being, who is also known as Sachidanand. Why it is not just said pleasure? Why Anand? Why not just Sukh, happiness? Because wherever you see happiness, it is always followed by sadness. So he, the Supreme Being, is always filled with the everlasting, blissful, nectarian bliss. And the way Swamiji has further explained it is that when we look at this entire universe, it is in 4 parts, out of which 3 parts are filled with that everlasting bliss. And that bliss is beyond our karmendriya, jnanendriya. We know things, perceive things, or understand things only with the help of the sense organs. But this happiness, this eternal bliss, the zone of the Supreme Being, is beyond our any faculties of action and perception. And as we discussed that there is no entity similar or dissimilar to him to be compared with him. And since he is in every component, every creation, he does not need to move from one place to another. And here, if you look at the second page, it's talking about Swagat Bhed Shunya. Bhed means Bhed Shunya. Shunya means zero. Bhed, when we say there is some conspiracy, something behind it. So, and Swagat, Swa means self, Gat means movement. So, he is devoid of any such moment because he is pervading in everything. He is prevailing in every component of this existence. He was always there. He will always be there. And he has always been there. So this is my understanding of this first sloka. And I was trying to find out what other religions have to say about God, including Bible, Jainism, Buddhism. So whenever someone has approached it from a scientific standpoint, they have explained it in a very different way, that if we are getting sunset, sunrise every day without interruption, everything is in order, then there must be a higher power that is keeping things in order. So here comes the speculation that there is a higher power that is keeping everything in order. Bees, which have no intellect, they know how to extract honey, make the beehives. It means there is some superior power that is regulating everything. So this, in some way or the other, was their definition, that because the things exist the way they exist and the way they are existing uninterrupted, because if we try to begin something, very soon we start seeing there are problems. But here, the Prakriti, the nature, the physical zone that we are seeing through our naked eye is just going on relentlessly. And even if there are times there is a dissolution, it comes back to its form, its original form, or in some form or the other. Whereas Swamiji has not just talked about it in a speculative way, in an inference way. And by inference, I mean that if you're driving, you see smoke somewhere, based on your knowledge, you infer that there must be fire, so there is a smoke. Similarly, since things are in order, then there must be an entity that is keeping things in order. These two are a speculative way of understanding the Supreme Being or God. But here, the way Swamiji has explained it, only someone who has achieved it, only someone who has been there, only someone who has seen it, who has witnessed, who has been a part of it, the way we are part of our day-to-day physical things to easily explain them. That is exactly the way Swamiji has explained. Its traits, he knowing what it is instead of inferring about it from its creation. So back to you, Rajji. And if I made any mistakes in explaining, then we have our esteemed Guru Bhai, Guru Bahans, who can correct me or shed light on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Subhashji. No, it was really, really wonderful that even many times, I also do a mistake in understanding one thing which you initially, very well, explained, that whenever we think about a God, we think, okay, we will see the God. So it's basically like we experience it instead of seeing, because when we talk about seeing, that means like, are we seeing with our eyes, or it's some kind of an imagination? So that that is a very basic understanding that you gave us, which I like a lot. And even I think yeah, also need to correct myself with that. And also, yeah, we understood that the way Swamiji has explained in Swarved, he has he's experiencing that in its true form. So like when I say knowledge is something which means that you know, your understanding is about a subject in its purest form. So that is where you say like it's a knowledge. And based on his Sadhguru's Swamiji's meditation, he sat and experienced all those things, and then he has written this thing, because no one has so far explained that there is a entity which we know. Like we always talk about it, like, okay, the one who is sustaining all this creation, where everything is happening, each actions, even the trees when they get flowers, when they blossom, or the fall season comes. So all different things happens because of one entity, which is also a satya. Satya means truth. Truth means it never changes. Every place, everywhere it is, you can find it as is the, and it is in the same experience you will see or you will get. So that entity is a truth. But beyond that, there is the Paramatma, who is the uh, root creator, you can say, who is like regulating all these things, who is channelizing these creations, who is also the observer. So yeah, it was very in-depth details. And I also apologize if I would have made any mistake. But now this forum, I would like to uh, invite those who have joined for the first time in this session. Please come forward and introduce themselves. You may unmute your phone and introduce yourself. Okay. If no one, then we would like to open this session or forum for all the attendees. And I would like to invite, if use this time as an opportunity to ask any questions you may have relating to today's discussion. Our team will surely try to answer.
Yes, Sadgurudeo. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Devji.
Okay. I finally got the English version, Glimpse into Swarved, and I was able to read the commentary and take in an understanding of it. And from this particular Doha, I take in that it explains basically right from the very start of the journey through the book what and how to view the power in which we're walking into with going into this book. That is definitely what I gathered from it. And yeah, it starts off right away with that separation of some people don't have the ability past their intellect to visualize God or the supreme power of the universe, Akshar Brahm, as anything other than a male human figure. But this kind of it kind of elapses that understanding, and it makes it a broader understanding of the power of an Akshar Brahm. And honestly, I think it could not have started better than then bringing in the broader perspective of always being there, participation in creation, above creation. It just, I thought it was amazing. And I think it really does tie together how, like, it, kind of Swarved for me is like digging a hole, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper until you would basically release your previous understanding of Prakriti. And I think, honestly, as soon as I read the commentary to this one, I felt like everything hit perfect on that note. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Devji, for sharing your understanding. And yes, this is the beauty of Surveyed, that Sadgurudeo, even from this first doha, as Dr. Subhasji also said, like from this first doha itself, we can get the understanding that it's not been written by any kind of thought process, or like any kind of an intellectual thing. It is something where Swamiji is getting that experience, and he's writing it. So yeah, I mean, yes, there couldn't be any better beginning with
Jason Dev, this is BJ. I'm just very curious about Girji, who
Jai Sadgurudeo Vijayji. You are saying something. Please unmute your phone and.
oh, just a second.
Yeah, you're audible now.
Audible, okay.
Yeah,
Mr. Girji has joined. I don't know who Girji is. I asked this to that person. Can he or she introduce?
Jai Sadgurudev,
Oh,
Vijayji.
you're Geet
Actually,
ji.
this is Geet. For some reason,
Uh,
something happened to my Zoom, and every time it just mentions my year.
Geer. I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
Sorry
That's what I
about
was
that.
wondering. Who is this new person? Okay.
So
Cool.
I'll just
Yeah.
change my name. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. And I would like to actually share my first impression of this Doha when I read as a child. The first time when I opened Swarved and I read this Satya Asatya se alag hai, so par Satya Swarup. So the first impression I had got was that Satya is different from Asatya. Satya is separate from Asatya. So I didn't look at it with the lens of an entity which is being defined here and said that that entity is different from the other Satya entity and a Satya entity. Rather, I started comparing these two words itself, that Satya is different from Asatya. So that was the first impression I had got. And then further says Sopar Satya Swarup. And it was getting confusing that, well, Swamiji compared Satya is different from Asatya. And then he's saying still it is a form of Satya. When I got the bigger picture later that, oh, Swamiji is saying, no, the Almighty God is one who is different from Satya as well as Asatya. So I got the first part right. And then still this was a confusion. Super Satya Swarup, still the form of truth. So this Doha also then forced me to look at it in more deeper way. And then I realized that Swamiji is bringing all different 6 eternal entities into picture, or rather forcing us to explore that what are those entities which are represented here as Satya, and what are the entities which are represented as Asatya. And then Swamiji is saying that the God is neither of those. God is neither of those entities. So that Swamiji wants to bring a clear picture. Many people think that I am God. You know, our identity itself is God. Swamiji is very clearly saying here that you are not God. You are a soul. Soul is a separate entity. Soul is a Satya entity. Satya is not just one entity, but any entity which has no change in the form and the state with passing time. At every coordinate of the time scale, whether you move to the back or to the present or go to the future, if you find that certain entity which is never changing with time and with space, that means that is the embodiment of truth. I mean, that is a Satya entity, the eternal entity. And Swamiji is saying, what are those entities? So Swamiji said that soul is one of them, Akshar Brahm is one of them, Sadguru entity is also one of them, the fundamental atom of this creation, the Prakriti, is also one of them, the Kal is one of them, and Almighty is the ultimate truth. Ideally, Almighty is also an eternal entity, but just to decipher here Almighty from every other Satya entity, Swamiji said that if you find any other Satya entity, any other entities which represent the eternal form, eternal existence, please don't confuse that that means that is also, that is God. Just like people have been confusing in the spiritual world about their own identity. People think that because the soul never ceases to exist, it does not take birth, it does not die, it just changes the body from one life to another life. And if we go deeper into it, none but the God Himself. This is the wrong conclusion that has been drawn in the spiritual world. And so Swamiji began with that very clarity that anything that you find eternally existing does not mean that that is God. The God is different from them. God is a supreme reality, supreme truth, which pervades through all these eternally existing entity also. But it doesn't mean that the God is that. God is one more subtle form within that entity, meaning within our soul is the supreme soul. That's why when we point finger on ourselves, we are not only pointing finger on the soul, the identity that define us, but the Almighty within the soul is also being pointed. That's why the word Swarved, when we say Swarved, here the Swa does not just limit ourselves to relate it to the identity of the soul, but it also says that Swa also means the Almighty, because within ourselves is the Almighty also. And Almighty is not just within ourselves, but in reality, Almighty is within everything else because He's so subtle and He's omnipresent. So there is no coordinate in the space where Almighty does not exist. And that's why Almighty is within everything. And that's why Almighty is also within the soul. So when the first time I read this, I did not get the real meaning of it. I read it again. I got uh, a better understanding only when I grew up. But yet the the Prakriti, which is the Satya, and the form of Prakriti, the creation of Prakriti, which is Asatya, that was still a confusion that got clarified only with Swarved Katha by Sant Pravar, Sri Vigyan Devji Maharaj, who very clearly then made all of us understand that the fundamental atom of the Prakriti, of the creation, the fundamental atom of the creation never cease to exist. That is eternally existing. But the creation which is formed by the combination of those fundamental atoms, whether you talk about the body, you talk about the galaxy, you talk about the tables, the chairs, anything that you see in creation, it is created. And when it is created, it has an expiry date. And that is why those created elements have been categorized as asatya, something which is temporary, which is going to cease to exist. So Prakriti was something which we still could not understand at that point of time, that the how come the Prakriti is Satya and the creation of Prakriti is Asatya, untruth. How the Prakriti is truth and the creation of Prakriti is untruth. This got very well clarified later with Swarved Katha by Sant Parji Maharaj, that there are 6 eternal entities which represent the truth, and there are out of, and then there are creation, the Maya, the things which are born, created, which has the expiry tag attached to it. Those are asatya. So creation of Prakriti is asatya, whereas the Prakriti, which is the word for the fundamental atom, the Parmanu, that is one of those Satya entity. And the God is different from the other 5 Satya entity. Swamiji made this clear in this Doha. Yes.
Thank you, Vijayji, for this wonderful, explanation about Satya and Asatya. So I request the participants, you have any questions?
Yes, Sadgurudeo. Very nice listening to the wonderful extension of what we discussed yesterday also, actually, in the Hindi Satsang of the same Doha. So this will really reinforce the understanding. One question was, even though the Almighty is pervading in every single atom, but inside the soul or inside a Jivatma, also he resides, and he writes karma. Law of karma is governed by that entity, the Paramatma that resides within Jivatma. Whereas inside the atom, looks like it's on autopilot. So could you make some distinction, like on that aspect of that dimension of the omniscience of the Almighty?
Thank you, Niranjanji, for your question. This was Niranjanji from California. So I would request our experienced team to please answer.
Yeah, we would love to hear Subhashi on this. Yeah.
Thank you. And Niranjanji, you always bring forward questions which are very meaningful, but yet how to say in English, that with a lot of essence in that. So if I understand it correctly, the question is, if the same Supreme Being is in every atom, how come those atoms function on autopilot, whereas the one, that Supreme Being that pervades in Jivatma, is determined by the karma, correct?
Yes, Subhashi, perfectly framed. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
So, see, every atom is in autopilot because of its oscillation force. As we talk about the creation and how Akshar Brahm led to the creation, it's because of the oscillation, the constant oscillation and the movement. And so electron, proton, neutron, which in the sense of chemistry and physics and the sense of Prakriti, the same thing becomes Satugun, Rajagun, Tamogun. So these things are oscillating randomly, but the fate is determined. As in, if I'm looking at a calcium particle, we know that from calcium, what will be formed is the chalk with which we can write. Because it is devoid of Gyan, Iksha, and Prayatna, the three attributes of the soul: knowledge, effort, desire. Whereas the soul, it has these attributes to do things on its own accord, which leads to karma, and that karma forms the bindings, and the bindings become so twisted, so the jiva becomes so shackled that it even forgets about its existence. It forgets about that there is a supreme being even within him, and that it was originated from there. It has to dissolve there. So that karma is because of inherent tendency of that eternal entity, the soul. The living entities, because of their inherent quality, they act, and that act determines their future act or fate, and hence that makes it different from those entities in which there are no attributes of Ichha, Gyan, and Prayatna, the three attributes of the living things. Did I make sense, Niranjanji? Did I give some light?
Yes. I think I'm glad you mentioned that actually. Yes, that I think connects the dot actually. Yes, because when we talk about the atom, it does not have chetna, even though the God's energy is part of that. It's pervading it, but because there's no chetna, it's not. It has an expiry date on it. I think that definitely explains that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Sadhguru.
Ji.
Thank you,
One,
Dr. Subhashji and Niranjanji.
Ji.
Yeah,
No,
please go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think that was very well put actually by Subhashji. One other thing I wanted to put, maybe from the Srimad Bhagavatam actually, I have a translated version, which says that God is not only an all-pervading consciousness who is even in the atom, but it is also supreme personality and cause of all causes, also simultaneously an individual person as an eternal spiritual bodily form whose bodily rays are the Brahma Jyoti. So, and then of course it describes about the Chetan Karna, right? Very much like all the Karmendriya, Gyanendriya, all of those exist in the Chetan. So there's an entire description of the in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the Satchidanand Vigrah. And so I was just trying to see if that is also consistent with our Doha of Sat Asatya Se Alag, which we just talked about. If we can shed some kind of light, or is that more of a fabricated English version of Srimad Bhagavatam? Because I think that's one of the things that we also get more clarity in our satsang, where So if someone can shed light on that, that will be really helpful. Thank you.
Vijayji, you want to please go with this?
No, we always love to hear you, Dr. Subhashji. If there'll be anything else to add, I'll definitely add.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm good to know that you love to hear me because I learned from you. So the sloka that you read, Niranjanji, you read it very fast. So either you can repeat it or I can begin on the bare minimum I could understand.
Yeah. This is not from Swarved. This is an
From
excerpt from Srimad Bhagavatam, and there it describes the God, and it says that God is not only an all-pervading consciousness who is even in the form of atom, but it is also a supreme personality and cause of all causes, and is also simultaneously an individual person as an eternal spiritual bodily form, whose bodily rays are the Brahmajyoti. And this is talking about Satchidanand Vigrah. So, so I was just trying to kind of get your insights on that.
What I understand, or based on my intellect, not experience, is that this is another way to explain Satchidanand Swarup hai. We are giving a roop, a shape here, because the way I see it, that for human beings, having a shape, a personality, a persona to things make it easier to pray. So not only that it is present and is pervading in every atom, what this excerpt says about God being a personality and a body, and that is the reason why Hinduism is what we call as polytheism. That is the reason why we have multiple gods, because of this definition of God having personality and a body. So based on our convenience, or based on what we suffered from, what helped us, came thousands of Hindu gods because of the same concept of God being a body and a personality. So what I see it is that is a religion-based perception or simplification to help people embody a spirituality. Because till you have your eyes, the physical eyes, you will always have a tendency to look for shape, look for a body, a personality whom you could look up to. So to me, it sounds like a good beginning to take someone on thy path of the spirituality. But as someone moves forward and moves beyond, he knows that there is no shape, there is no form. It is there, it pervades. So if it pervades in everything, it takes the shape or the form of that specific thing. Even for Atma, a basic intricate quality of soul is that soul becomes what it is aligned with. The way the soul is in the body, then the soul thinks of itself as a body. So it forgets its inherent quality, and it becomes everything about the body. So there, the soul in the human body is in unison with the body, forgetting its own trait. But we are talking about Almighty, जो कण-कण में व्याप्त है. So if it is in everything, it has taken the shape of everything that is there. But for people to be able to praise someone, it's very good, easy to give a personality, a shape, a body to that Almighty. That is what I understand.
Yes, and I'll just add little thing on this. that when we give a physical body to an entity, it becomes a place of residence for that entity in terms of body and soul relation. If you talk about, for example, right now, what is the resident of my soul? Sorry, what is the residence of my soul? So the residence of my soul is my body. My body is the house which is housing the soul. So the term housing actually makes it more clear that you confine that entity within the body. So when you confine an entity within a body, then you can exactly say that that particular house is confining or housing the resident within. But can you house Almighty? Can anything be the residence of the whole Almighty? And this is where Sadgurudeo very emphatically clarified that Almighty is undivisible, indivisible. You cannot divide Almighty. Almighty is all pervading all the time. He will never change his states. So even though we build a relation with, let's say, saying that, well, God cannot be confined within an individual body, but what if we say that this entire creation is the body of the Almighty? Can we say this? Ideally speaking, we cannot say even that, because the only the partial portion of Almighty is enough to cover the whole creation. Even though the Almighty is within ourselves, it does not mean that the whole of Almighty is within ourselves. It is just that when the fish is floating in the ocean, and if you ask the fish, what is within you, the water that is flowing within you, what is that? The fish will say it is ocean, because it is the ocean water which is flowing within myself. I am breathing, I am drinking the ocean water. So ocean water is within the fish. It does not mean that there is no ocean water outside fish. So whatever is inside fish does not confine that thing within the fish, but the existence of the ocean is within and outside the fish. You cannot confine ocean within the fish. Whereas a drop of water, you can confine it, you can enclose it within a shape. And let's say a mug of water, you can confine that within a mug. But the ocean cannot be confined within a mug, even though the ocean water is what you collected. So all this says one thing, that even though the Almighty is the Supreme Personality, that version of statement is correct, because Swamiji is also saying that Almighty is Satya Swarup, meaning he has his identity and he has his Swarup. When he has his Swarup, meaning he has a personality. But is it the form of personality that we want to perceive, or he has his own personality? Is his personality physical in nature, as is our body or every other jiva's body, or his body is totally different from our body? So Swamiji, that's why clarifies here that his body is also Satya Swarup, meaning he is built with the form or the body of consciousness alone, nothing else, because only the consciousness alone makes the Almighty. In fact, the word make is also incorrect to say about Almighty, because Almighty is not made, he exists. There's nothing that makes Almighty, because the Almighty is eternally existing with his body of consciousness. So his form is the conscious form. So he has a persona, but that persona that he has, the identity that he has is of conscious identity. There's no physical identity that can define Almighty. But as Dr. Subhaji said, that for people to be able to communicate, people choose any part of the creation to represent Almighty, because anyway Almighty is flowing within that entity. So for the convenience of communication, one-way communication, people choose one or the other form to identify that as Almighty God, which is fine, because at least you establish one-way communication. But at the same time, Vedas said very clearly that yato vacho nivartante aprapya mansasa. In reality, Almighty is at a state or in the form which is unreachable or unattainable by our mind and speech. With our speech, we cannot make Almighty appear in front of us. With our mind, we cannot make Almighty appear in front of us. Rather, he can be only experienced when we awaken our eyes of consciousness. Right now, we only have physical eyes. Until we awaken our secret sense of consciousness, the Almighty will not be visible, will not be experienceable for the soul, even though he has a supreme personality. But his supreme personality is only in the dimension of consciousness, not an iota of physicality exists in his body. And that's why it has been also said later that he's nirgun. He is nirgun. He has no element of prakriti in the body or in his identity. He's beyond that. He never contain the guna part within his identity. He is beyond guna, beyond creation. Yeah. Jai Sadgurudeo.
Jasha, thank you, Vijayji.
Jai Sadgurudeo. I would like to add just few lines. I mean, it was really beautifully explained by Vijayji and Dr. Subhashji. So can I just add my thoughts?
Yes, Changi, please go ahead.
Yeah. So Niranjanji, I think the narration that you read, from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, I think it was basically saying the same thing that this Doha says. That, I mean, I was trying to literally compare the words where, I think the commentary said the Parmanus, even though the Almighty is within the Parmanu, it has its own, presence. So I think it is exactly like this, right? So if you look at the Parmanus, they are, if you look at Prakriti, Mool Prakriti, then, it is an entity. And even though, Paramatma is present in those Parmanus, it is actually separate from it, and it has its own identity. I think that is what it was, the explanation was saying, that even, it is present everywhere. At the same time, it has its own existence. It is, separate from the other entities that we see. So I think this just wanted to add that.
Yes, thank you. I think exactly. We are just getting more clarity, actually. Yes, you're right. Because, and I think Subhaji was saying also that a lot of those translations, even from Srimad Bhagavatam, is more geared for a lot of masses. So that's why this level of clarity is very, very important, especially for us to really understand. And so yeah, so really thank you for that clarity, actually. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Niranjan ji. Thank you.
This is Asmuk Patel. May I add something?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
please.
It was a beautiful discussion. Subhashji and Vijayji explained. I have a little different take on this one. I think Sadafalji is talking beyond everything what we have discussed. He's talking about the wholesome, one, unity. What we are talking about, Sat and Asat, we are again dividing it. To see beyond the differences is the Sat. Only one exists. Kanekan, every particle, everywhere. He's everywhere and nowhere. It's that, and that's why he used that word in this very verse, akatha, which you cannot describe. We're trying to describe right now. And it's good. I like it. Discussion is very helpful. But if we get stuck and stopped on here, I think we're limiting ourselves and we are not understanding Sadafal Jivji fully. And that's why further down in Swarved, he recommends bhakti, sharanagati. You just surrender to that Supreme Almighty. And then his kripa, the grace, bestows on you, and everything gets clear. We don't have to go differentiating all these different varieties of this oneness, because the more we get, dividing this thing, sat, asat, good, bad, truth, untruth, they are just limiting first steps of it, but it's total together. That's why it is Sat Chit Anand. Whatever exists, exists. We don't have to analyze too much. We just have to experience it. Chit is the surti. We just have to go to that and request, urge. We have to, I think he wants us to experience. So more we use our intellect, we are kind of falling apart from our intention. And so I think it's very important, the word akatha, aloki. These are the words which is, we're going beyond this thing. If we cannot describe this thing, words cannot limit itself. So I think, to me, I think what our discussion is great and it's very well, but I think we have to go beyond our own discussion and really understand the wholeness, the unison, not the diversity. So these are a couple of thoughts I have upon this verse. Thank you.
Thank you, Hasmukh-ji. This was a very good, explanation you gave. Even I had, when the discussion started, even I had one question when Vijayji was talking about different entity. So, I mean, from this Doha, I also understood that when in the path of spiritual exploration, when we start moving inwards and, experience entity, and we see there is further division is there, so that we have to separate out. And I think that is where we first experience the prakriti, the mool prakriti, and the soul. So slowly each and every entity is getting separate out. There is, at every state we might see there is presence of other entities. But when we reach to the supreme, there is no further any division. It's oneness. I think that's what even I was getting this question, and maybe I'm trying to further understand. Maybe it is Swamiji is also trying to explain it in this way as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Hasmukh-ji, for the wonderful summary of what really the focus has to be. And of course, I think everybody here is definitely very devoted in the and putting intellect to understand, especially the subject of Almighty is absolutely, it's like an ant trying to describe the universe. So absolutely, totally agree on that. Yes, thank you.
This reminds me of the story about the elephant. Everybody heard about it. We describe the tail, the ear, the legs, and we think, we're blind. This is elephant. But, the finding elephant with our limited understanding and intellect, we cannot understand the elephant. So we cannot understand, which is inconceivable. This Sat, the Almighty, is inconceivable. Our mind is limited. We're trying to understand and analyze by our limited resource. The infinite, which is not even born, Aja. How can you even describe that? So I think we have to drop all our understanding and even the inquisitiveness about analyzing and understanding. It cannot be understood. But when you just go with full surrender, the grace itself takes over. And I think we all get that inspiration. And I'm sure everybody in this group, if you have meditated, you have experienced that. And that's why Swarved always emphasizes this is experience based. That's the whole difference about Swarved compared to other practices. We have to experience. And where we want to experience, we just have to let alone our intellect, our expectations, and everything. Let grace do the work. When we surrender, it comes to us. That's what I feel. Because even the Veda says, neti, neti, not this, not this. Whatever you understand, even the experiences we have in meditation, even not that. Because Sadapal Jeji and even Swatantra Devji has also said, do not stop. Whatever your experiences are, that is not the limit. It's unlimited. And so when we just follow that without our expectation, we just feel good. And that's what bliss is. It's not something we want to arrive somewhere. We don't have to go put the definition of some arrival, some destination. We are there. We just have to experience it. We try to, confuse ourselves sometimes. I feel that way. I have a tendency to analyze also, but we just have to stop at some point trying to too much analysis. It's one thing to understand initially, but if we keep on doing that, it just becomes obstruction in our own search and experience. That's just how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Smugji. Yes, definitely, because this is a science of experiencing entity. So we did a lot of discussions, but as Vihangam Yoga philosophy says, or Sadguru always says in his proclamation also, that Adbhut Marg Yoga Vihangam मैं तुमको बतलाऊंगा यदि विधिवत तुम साधन करी हो. So that emphasis is always there, that we have to practice, practice, and practice. So thank you, everyone. I think we reached to end of kind of today's session. We are reaching to the warrior of week. Now it's time to announce that. And we all know that Brahmut is a time when we practice meditation. During that time we gain a multi benefits are there, as well as like our progress goes much faster. So coming to that warriors of a week, so this week's warrior is Surya Alam Raju ji, Yogesh Shir Sagar ji, Bhagwati Patel ji, Tejendra Sardev ji, Shrirang Dolas ji. And inductees of the week is Amit Talekar ji, Ranjani ji, Vijay Kumar ji, Geet ji, Mukesh Kumar ji, Radha ji, Lalmani Prasad ji, Dave Miller ji, Dr. Rahul Avasti ji, Niranjan ji, Seema ji, Sri Ram Sahu ji. So if you are not joined with this Brahmut meditation group, let me know. We can send you a link. It is a WhatsApp group. There, what you need to do is between 3 to 5 a.m. in the morning, you have to get up and practice meditation by yourself. There is no guided meditation or anything. You have to practice the meditation, and then in that group you post a message saying that as a done, DONE, and that's all. But thank you everyone, and for inspiring us for this warriors of Brahmut meditation. Now we will end this session by means of Vandana, Aarti, and Santi part. So our prayer is Vandana, where I would request Jessica ji to chant this prayer. Vandana is a prayer through which we seek blessings of Sadguru. We request good health, wealth, and seek his blessings for spiritual knowledge. I would request Jessica ji to please sing the last 4 lines of Vandana.
Sadgurudeo, Vandana. Prabhu Kalpa Santa Samaja Uttama Sara Dharma Acharya He Jimi Nadia Ashrita Sindhu Kiye Vishwapathamaya Karya He Prabhu Sacha Santa Samaja Tira Aparaksha Kijiye Jana Sada Phala Jnana Bhakti Riddhi Dina Dina Kijiye.
Thank you, Jessica ji. Our next prayer is Aarti. Aarti is another prayer that we offer to Sadguru. Here we acknowledge the power of the Almighty and pray that all disciples experience eternal joy, love, and freedom from worries under his guidance. So I request everyone to please stand up for the Aarti, and request Jessica ji to sing this last few lines of Aarti.
Aarti. Jai Gurudeva Hare Sadgurudeva Hare Shisha Janana Ke Sanse Sana Medura Kare Jo Shanana Miyawe Satapatha Pawe Mohamite Jivaka Sukha Shanti Veya Pawe Rukadamite Jagaka Guru Murati Gati Chandrama Sevaka Nayana Chakur Palaka Palaka Nirakatara He Guru Murati Kiyo Shweta Shweta Maya Shweta He Shweta Shweta Maya Shweta Tina Pada Amrita Bara Shweta Mahanada Shweta Ashta Chakra Sabashunya Para Dara Kepa Tahasada Phala Karakia Uli Prada Sansa.
Thank you, Jessica ji. Now everyone can sit down for the final prayer Santi part. In Santi part, we chant for peace for everyone in this universe. May Sadgurudeo bless the entire cosmos with peace, love, and prosperity. I would now request Jessica ji to recite the last few lines of Santi part.
Shantipat. He Prabhu Shanti Swarupa Ho, Shanti Shanti Maya Shanti, Shanti Shanti Jana Shanti Ho, Purna Shanti Maya Shanti. He Prabhu Shanti Pradana Kara, Durabho Sarva Shanti, Deva Sada Phala Shanti Maya, Shanti Shanti Sukha Shanti. Boliye Sadgurudeo Bhagavan Ki Jai.
Thank you, Jessica ji. And I would like to thank you, everyone who has joined today's session and contributed in today's session. Special thanks to Dr. Subhash ji, Niranjan ji, Vijay Kumar ji, Dev ji, Hasmukh Patel ji for contributing today's session. NAIVY has been conducting this Sunday virtual Satsang and Vihangam Yoga initiation workshop all over US and North America over the past few years. Any queries relating to this can be sent to info@vihangamyoga.org. I would also like to thank our attendees for their valuable contributions in today's session. See you all next Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time on the same Zoom meeting. Have a wonderful day ahead, and Jai Sadgurudeo.